This is the first ladies golf podcast that I've ever appeared on. So,
Right.
this is, you're doing something unique, which is what my advice to everybody that's starting something is, do something that people aren't doing. Don't try and do something that everybody else is doing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been fun. I just like talking to people who, you don't regularly hear from on like the major things, and it's been cool. Like when I went to one of like the 5 iron golf league nights, and she was like, yeah, one of the girls was like, yeah, I like sent it to my partner because she like didn't understand why I was watching the Masters. So I was like, okay, like somebody's getting something out of it.
Yeah. Well, those are like the stories,
Yeah.
I don't know. When we just started, like, you when you're small, you don't know what's going on, and you don't know if you're actually making an impact, and then you get an email from somebody that tells you like how you've like completely changed the way they look at something, and it's like, God,
Yeah.
it was like, that would get me to like keep working hard. And you have to like, it means so much, when people give you compliments when you're not sure if like people like if you're at the stage where you're not sure if it's doing anything.
For sure. So yeah, so we've done a series. One of them is Ladies of Golf, which is just like introducing people to women who work or play in golf or just like it. And then this has been Golf 101, which I think like there are so many like intro to golf things out there, and that's great. We're not trying to like teach people how to play golf on this. We're just introducing them to like different parts of the game. And so felt like you were the right fit for Golf 101. What the fuck is golf architecture?
Awesome.
And yeah, but I think like before we get into it, for those who don't know what the fried egg is, what is it? When did you start it?
Yeah, we're a golf website, newsletter, podcast. I started it in December of 2015. The idea was to be the skim for golf. So newsletter
Mm,
was the first thing that we did, and it's designed as 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And the whole idea is like you don't have to watch a minute of golf, and you know what's going on, and it's got that kind of commentary. It's not written like a AP news article. It's got some personality in it. So that's how it started, and then it expanded from there into a website and a podcast. And now we do events and other stuff. But who knows what it's going to be in 2021?
right, right. And was it so it was the golf skim of golf, it was the skim of golf. I've subscribed to the skim for like the longest time, but like did you guys pick your niche to be like golf course architecture, or how was that like kind of an arm of the fried egg?
I was always interested in golf architecture.
Yeah.
I always say that I was the really cool kid in college that was reading Golf Club Atlas in my free time,
Very
in the
cool.
dorm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody wanted to be me, really.
Right.
But yeah, I was always interested in golf architecture. I didn't really think that that's what our specialty would become. But then I wrote an article about Sweetens Cove, and then I wrote an article about a golf architecture feature. And sure enough, they were like the two most popular days that the fried egg had early on. And its, website, I'd be tracking
A lot of
how
unique
many
views.
hits. Yeah, exactly. And I wrote this article on like a Redan hole, and God bless my wife who read it, who has no interest in golf.
Right.
Who read the article, edited it, and all of a sudden on the 4th of July, it was like we'd set records, exponential records of website traffic and all sorts of stuff. So that I was like, oh, I guess I should write more stuff like this. And that's how it got going. And then the podcast, a lot of the early guests were architects. And to this day, we do a ton of architecture stuff on the podcast.
Nice, nice. So if you look at like the demographics of the For the Ladies podcast, it's like 75% women, 25% male, and it's like a younger age group. Um, and just like feedback wise, I've heard it's a lot of people who are new to golf, or there's some people who are just like golf podcasts or like golf content that they're listening to. But if you were talking to like more of a beginner golfer, why should they like care about golf course design?
I think it's a really interesting little subset of golf.
Yeah.
It's just like building architecture or artists. Like golf architecture is an art, and it's something to appreciate. One of the things, if you're starting golf and you're beginner at golf, one of the most frustrating aspects of golf is that it's extraordinarily difficult, and it can be frustrating. But what I kind of I've had different phases in my golf life where I've been super competitive and, everything revolved around playing the best golf I could play. But, at this point in my golf life, like really what I do is I go and I play golf, and if I play well, whatever. But what I'm doing is paying attention to the golf courses that I'm seeing. And what I noticed, I just don't really care how I play. And I generally have a great time every time I play golf. And it provides you another reason to go play golf. It's a reason to go see places. It's almost like, in a way, like restaurants. It's like, oh, I want to go see this new restaurant because they've got this chef that was on Top Chef, and they have this great dish that I want to try. Or and I think that's the appeal of golf course architecture, is that it gives the whole game another dimension. It's not just dependent on how you play. Like, you're enjoying your walk, and you're looking around and noticing the stuff that's laid out around you.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Cause now when I go somewhere new, I kind of do look to see like what are the courses in the area? Like, have I heard of them before? Or should I care? So yeah, I love that. I love that comparison.
Yeah, it's neat. There's so many courses too, and that's the thing. And I think something that gets misconstrued, and this might be a question you have, is like, what is good golf architecture?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Architecture, golf art is like an art form, right? So what I think is good, somebody else can think something else is good, and that's fine. Like,
Right.
I look at a piece of art and I might say, what the hell is that? And my wife might say, that's the most beautiful thing. Like, to this day, obviously with what's going on in the world, my wife and I have gone for more walks than probably we would have in 20 years this year.
Right.
And we always walk, and like the natural thing on a walk around a neighborhood is to talk about houses. Right.
Sure.
And I said to my wife just yesterday, I was like, she's like, I love that house. And I would never have picked that as her house that she would love, based off of, the entire year of her telling me. And I'm like, I have no clue why you would like that house. Like, I would never have pegged you for that. But like, she's got a different view on houses than I do. Right.
Right. It's so subjective.
Exactly. So I think that's the important thing. I think there are things like the stuff that I like is stuff that gives people, like, you look at a hole and you can say, I can play this in so many different ways, and makes you think about how you want to play it. Like, I think the best holes are the ones that you walk off and you're never sure if you're playing them the right way. You're thinking, maybe I should hit it over here with this club instead of hitting it up here with this club.
Yeah.
And then you do it that way the next time, and you're not sure. Like, a hole that provides you with all different types of outcomes based off of how you play. And, unfortunately in America, most of the golf architecture is very prescriptive, very hit it here, and very target oriented. So I like golf that's a little bit wider, that has openings at the fronts of greens, so you can play a lot of different shots into them, and you can play from a lot of different locations into the green. So in a very basic term, I would say, I like, if you want to compare it to house architecture again, I like open floor plans where there's no clear definition of what a room has to be necessarily, where your kitchen sprawls into your great room, so on and so forth.
Awesome. I love that. So I guess that this would kind of leads into this as well, is like, what types of courses then cater to beginner amateur golfers? One that have a lot of choices, ones that it is kind of like, where you're supposed to go, or what would you say?
So I think like a very easy way for, say you're in an area and you want to go play a golf course, it for most of the country, if you just in a lot of times Donald Ross courses are very prevalent in every area, and there's a lot of public Donald Ross courses available to everyone that's really east of the Mississippi.
Yeah.
Is I would just try and find a Donald Ross course in your area, because if you find like a golden age golf course, which a golden age course is a course built in the 1910s to 1930s,
Okay.
the equipment, the equipment that they used then promoted the ball running up to the green.
Right.
And one of the things with beginning golfers, senior golfers, women golfers is a lower trajectory. So like a man golfer you see on TV, they hit it so high that, they fly everything into the greens pretty much from everywhere. But what those older courses have, because nobody could fly the ball into greens, is they have open approaches. So going into the green, it's open. So that's really good for beginners because you can achieve shots. It makes it really achievable. You can hit, you might not hit every shot perfect. Nobody does. The game's as frustrating for Tiger Woods as it is for a beginner, believe it or not. And I think that's what makes the game so great. Right. But those openings into the greens allow a lower trajectory player a chance to hit a great shot, as opposed to a green that has bunkers or water all around it. That all that's doing is eliminating the types of shots that can succeed going into that. And I think there's nothing better. Like, so Pinehurst number 2, I know you've been there a bunch of times.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. I was playing around with 2 randoms there. And I mean, it was like an old lady and old man. Like, didn't know anything about it. Like they'd been going down there for years. We're playing number 2, and I hit like a really good drive on 1, missed the green or something. Hit a really good drive on 2, missed the green. All of a sudden, I'm like 2 over. On 3, I hit it right down the middle. Meanwhile, this old guy, you could tell he's not very good. He's hitting like just grounders everywhere.
Right.
But he like rolled he rolled it up both on 1. He hit his 3rd shot. He ran it right up like to like 4 feet, made par. On 2, he sculled his 2nd shot. And it rolled right up to like 6 feet, made birdie. And I'm in the middle of the 3rd fairway, and I'm like, God, I've hit like perfect drives on all 3 holes, and this guy is beating the crap out of me. And he's not nearly as good of it, but it was the approaches the greens, like being open, allowed him to get away with some shots that were just okay. And that, I think that's what more golf courses need, especially because a lot of like the golf courses that beginners go and play at were ones that were built in an era that didn't value those open approaches.
Okay. Which is when?
It's like from basically post World War II till 2000. Let's just put a marker. They're still being built.
Yeah.
But that's where, really hard golf is. The idea of penal golf. Like, if you don't hit it here, it's like a true or false question on a test. If you don't hit it here, you're in the false area and you're not in a good spot. Like, there was no idea of like, hey, let's let people play and navigate their way around the course. You might not be great at hitting driver or irons, but if you have a great short game, you can make up for that at a course that doesn't kill you off the tee and approaching the green.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why, Sweetens Cove is difficult, but it's why it's also very fun, because you can just kind of like make your way to the green, and then you have like a lot of opportunities to still save yourself.
Yeah. And like the abandoned courses, but it's important. Like, if you go to like a Donald Ross, like, I'm just trying to think, like in Cleveland, there's Manakiki. That course is super playable. In Chicago, there's Ravislow. In New York, obviously,
Wilmington Municipal, which is a Donald Ross, but like so fun.
Asheville has the whatever the public Asheville course is. They're all over the place, the East Coast. But then in LA, like Rancho Park is a great place to go play, or Griffith Park in LA, Rustic Canyon. There's all sorts of places in every city that are very accessible and playable. And if you go play those places, you're going to have a better time in general, because it's just going to, everybody's looking to achieve stuff when they go to the golf course, right?
Yeah.
It's really about hitting one or two shots where you're like, wow,
I am so good.
Yeah, because those are the ones that you won't go home with, and you're
Right.
like, oh, I figured it out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of like fun places. Like I've played East Potomac a few times, and that was of course before it was purchased, but and like that was so fun because I could just like hit it wherever I wanted and I still had a good time. But I guess like we are talking so much about like what's good. What are like these like what are the misconceptions that you see in golf course design, especially because like when you're introduced to golf, you're like, I guess I should like watch a PGA Tour round, and all you see are like, beautifully manicured greens or like a really luscious rough, and you're like, is this what it's supposed to be? So what are some of like the misconceptions that you've seen out there?
I think like the one we talked about it earlier, but like good and bad. It's
Yeah.
it's an art, and I'm as guilty as anybody. But it's just not my taste, right? Like, so something's good because of X and something's bad because of Y. That's not necessarily true. And a lot of times, like the best courses in the world, like at Cypress Point's a great example. There's like rules in golf architecture: never have back-to-back par threes. Well, 15 and 16 are back-to-back par threes, but they're on like the cliffs of the Pacific Ocean.
Right.
So you know what? It's okay there.
Yeah.
That's fine. So I would say like the steadfast rules, I think, are a big misconception. And just in general, golf is so counterintuitive in every form, right? If you're hitting the ball left, they say you need to swing left, right? To fix it. If you're hitting it right, you need to swing. Or that's crazy. It's crazy to think about that. But like in every aspect of golf, there's these misconceptions. So, in terms of like, if you flip on the PGA Tour, you see these lush golf courses, and those are the easiest things to pick out, is this lush green grass. Like, understand that, hey, what they have, all that does is cost more money to the consumer, because the amount of money it costs to maintain that stuff, if you're expecting that out of your local course that you want to play for $30, it's just not feasible, right? But I think in general,
that's okay.
Yeah, and the PGA Tour in general just is like, it's such a different game than what 99% of the public plays, So I think, if you're just, obviously it's a good way to get into golf is watching golf, but understand that like a lot of what happens there is a lot different than what happens in real golf, let's just say.
Right. And then, I mean, that goes for any sport. Like, when you play high school football, you're not playing at a place like the NFL players play. And same thing with basketball. Like, you might play in like a park versus a filled stadium. So.
Hey, in some cases, you probably are going to be playing at a course that I would rather play than PGA Tour is playing. So
yes.
That's like the thing, is a lot of times you can go to the same town and pay half as much to play a course that might be more enjoyable than the PGA Tour course in a said town.
Right. All right. So since this is a women's podcast, like I think a lot of us do play from the forward tees. And a few people asked this, and I thought it was such a good question, is like, how are golf courses designed? Are they designed for somebody who plays from the tips, or the back tees, or they play, how are they designed, or like how maybe were they designed and how that's changing? But what, somebody who plays from the forward tees, is that course designed for them?
This is like, I think this is something that's changing, and I'm very happy about it. But, I grew up caddying, and, like I would always caddy Ladies' Day at the course I grew up caddying at. And it's funny because like they played like basically the men's tees, but it was like a par 78. It was so crazy. It was just like all par fives. It was just like, it was so long, but then like they started to add forward tees over the years, but it was like an afterthought, right? So
they're just down.
Exactly. And so much of golf is and this is back to the PGA Tour thing. It's like this 1% of golfers drive so much of the conversation and decisions in golf. And it's not, golf course design was really along these lines also. And I think, in terms of the forward tees, I think that's changing. Like the architects today, the popular architects today, Gil Hanse, Tom Doak, Bill Corr, Ben Crenshaw, David McClay Kidd, they think tirelessly about different types of players, different tees, and how that experience is for different, players. And obviously then approaching the green, making sure, hey, there's an option for a lower trajectory player to use this slope and get into the greens. And this is like another reason why like golf architecture is important, especially, when your trajectory, the height at which your ball goes, and then also the distance it goes becomes more important, is if you have a basic understanding of like how slopes and contours work. And like some people might think I'm crazy. A lot of times I walk golf courses and I just bring golf balls and I roll them around the greens. I throw them and see how slopes funnel stuff in. But if you start to understand and you have an eye for it, as a lower trajectory player, what you should be doing is looking at exterior edges of greens and saying, hey, I don't have to hit it over this bunker. I could hit it over here, and that slope can take it right into there's one of the coolest things I think about golf is when you aim away to hit it close to something. So like, that's like my favorite thing in golf is hitting a shot 20 yards right of a flag, knowing it's going to roll all the way to the flag, and the suspense of the ball rolling.
Yeah.
So like sometimes I just wish I could be a low trajectory player, which is why I like playing like old equipment a lot, because all of a sudden then the ball rolls so much more, and I have more fun just watching shots react and use the architecture. I'm sure this is really boring people.
No, it's good for the right audience. So golf course architecture design, I mean, you just listed off quite a few architects who are, trying to make the game more approachable from like all the tees. They are all men. So do you know of any female golf course designers that we should know of? Or like, do you see any? Like, why is it so male dominated, aside from the game kind of being a little male dominated too?
I think that I don't want to get myself in too much trouble with this response. But I think it has to do a lot with the game.
Yeah.
Golf's very old school.
Yeah.
And I think that's, if you look at the trends and how golf reacts to trends, it's typically really behind. So, it's still very far behind in women minority participation. And in general, it lags maybe 20 years behind society in general. With women, the other thing with golf architecture, people like think it's like this glamorous job.
Right.
And sure, for like Gil, Hanse, Tom, Bill, and Ben, they've reached the apex of their profession, and it's pretty glamorous for them. But to get there is extremely unglamorous, and it requires like years of being, essentially like a grunt on site, digging ditches. It's a very, manual labor driven job. Like your early jobs are you're working on a construction site essentially. So, you're working a, bulldozer, different things. That being said, like Jan Beljan she worked for Tom Fazio for years. She does a lot of design work and redesign stuff in South Florida. And then Angela Moser is a younger associate for both Tom, and she's worked for Gil Hanse too. And she's kind of like an up and comer. And I haven't ever met her. I've had conversations online. She's an internet friend. As we all have that. This is like, that's why I always say is like, oh, there are people like, oh, you're friends with that person, I'm like, oh, he's just an internet
We
friend,
tweet at each other.
Yeah, exactly. But Angela is, from everybody I've talked to, extremely talented, young, up and coming golf architect, shaper. So she would be somebody to keep an eye on, and I'm sure she'll design some courses of her own. She's from Germany, and so that. But then obviously Alice Dye was very famous for her work with Pete, and that was really a partnership where she'd be Pete's editor and made like Pete had got a bad rap for a lot of hard golf courses. She probably softened a lot of them and then would say, hey, I could hit that shot, and or I couldn't hit that shot. So I think she was, from all accounts, from everybody you talked to, she was very instrumental with Pete Dye's work.
Yeah. And it's something that I say like a lot on this podcast, and a lot of women have said to me, is if you don't see it, you can't really be it. So that's like how it was with even just like my job. Like if I hadn't seen some female like marketer who's really successful, I don't know if I would have been interested in that job. So, hopefully like the Angels of the world or other women who like get into it then show that other women can be in that career as well. So, I mean, it just takes time, and hopefully we're moving in that direction.
Yeah, I hope we're moving in that direction too. I think
it's cool to see that there are, women at least working in it. They don't need to be the name on the golf course design like nameplate. They're working in the industry, so that's cool.
Well, I mean, it's like the men are from Mars and women are from Venus. Like I think like a lot of things, like when you think about male traits and female traits.
Yeah.
Like my wife is always on me. You need to hire a woman because you're really unorganized and your attention to detail shit. It's like a lot of like the things that lend themselves to good golf architects are traits that you would say lead more towards women. Like sure. I think like a lot of like, if I was like starting a golf architecture firm, I might hire Angela to be like, hey, I know I'm not going to be very good at this, because that's what really work is. It's like identifying what you can't do or suck at, and finding people who could do different stuff. Outside of, she would know way more. She knows way more about architecture than I do. She's actually a professional, in golf architecture, but also like, just in terms of like, and this is probably coming way across wrong in terms of like sexism or stuff. I hope it doesn't, but like there are different aspects of what women and men do well in general, generally speaking.
Yes. Well, yeah, I just thought at the end of the day, it was like kind of interesting. I was like, gosh, there really just like aren't many. So I figured I should ask.
Like it doesn't make any sense that there aren't like any named women like prolific architects. Like it makes zero sense whatsoever. And there haven't ever really been over the history of golf, which is even crazier. And it makes you wonder, like, what are we missing out on?
Sure. We just don't know. So
this will be something that the hopefully 2020s reveals.
Yes, perfect. So we had some very entertaining mailbag questions from Twitter. I think that there are a lot of very niche ones that I will not be asking.
Yes, please don't. Don't ask stupid ones.
If you would like to, you should just go listen to the Shotgun Start, and then you can feel free to indulge yourself in those types of questions. But I do want to ask you a few of them. So what is the Formby Ladies Golf Club, and should something like this exist in the US?
Yeah, so in the UK, there's a handful of golf courses that are like women's clubs. Okay. And their golf courses are designed specifically for women.
Cool.
This should 100% be something that exists in the United States. Tom Dokes talked about this, I think, on my pod, about how he's one of the things, he is really unique in the sense of like, he wants to do different stuff all the time. I think like doing the same, like building the same type of golf course over and over again makes him restless, which is why he's designed like the reversible course, he does all types of stuff. He likes to zig and zag. But one of the things he's always talked about is he wants to design a golf course specifically for women. and because like a lot of like women are way more precise than men. So like for me, who hits it, I'm hitting it shorter and shorter every day, but hits it roughly 300 yards. You know, I'm going to hit it way further right and left than a very good wood player who hits it 250. Like they just, you know, your cone's different. And he wants to build a golf course that specifically, and this should exist. And I would love to play it as a man because it would probably kick my ass. And I'd have to play way differently. And that's one of the cool things about golf architecture, back to it, is like we never play on the same field. And we should have golf courses that present drastically different challenges, you know, based off it. So I would love to see something like that in the US. And I think it would be wildly popular. I don't understand why a resort hasn't jumped at the idea of doing that. Like it's a no-brainer to me.
Yeah. So sorry, is it like one course? Is it multiple courses?
It's one course.
Okay.
So it's designed for women. I think there's one at St. Andrews too.
Cool.
But the golf course is designed for women.
Okay.
And I think that should 100% be a thing that happens.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. This one will make you laugh. Waterfall features. Instead of like how many is too many, which is what most people asked me, why do you think golf courses, clubs, like why do they find them attractive in the first place?
Well, I think there's like this whole thing about like this might have been a trend that happened. Like you see it when you drive into like a subdivision. You see these cascading waterfalls, and you're like, I always like look at it and I'm like, you know how dumb that is? Like every resident in the subdivision pays like, you know, however much a month to maintain this stupid waterfall at the entrance. Like, and this is the same thing with golf courses. Again, this is subjective. This is art that I don't appreciate.
Right.
Somebody really likes it, and it's like this
picture in front of it.
Yeah, exactly. They're famous, like, you know, golf courses that people love that have waterfalls, and I think it's like the ideal. And this is a different type of architecture than I'm kind of more of your lay of the land. I like the idea of I'm going somewhere and the golf course that embodies where it is, right? I want to know. I think that's like one of the unique things. Like there's another type of architecture that says, hey, we can be in the middle of Las Vegas. Like let's just take Shadow Creek, for example. We're in the middle of a desert and we're taking you to this oasis that has waterfalls and features and evergreen trees and lush green grass. And that's just not my cup of tea, because I look at it, and I was an environmental science major in college, and I look at it and I say, you know what? This is stupid. You know, this shouldn't be here. But this is my opinion. I'm not saying that golf course is stupid. I'm just, you know, this is my opinion on that art form, which is fine. And this is why one of the other beauties of golf architecture is there's endless debates about all sorts of stuff because nobody's right, you know? But I like, you know, a perfect example is LA, Los Angeles. Like if you think about like the natural landscape of LA, it's like these canyons and these, you know, dried out creeks. And for years, everything with golf courses went away from that. Like they wanted to create this like parkland setting in LA, which is like green and trees and creeks. And it's like, as somebody from the Midwest, I think the LA setting with canyons and like dried out river gorges is like the coolest setting you could have for golf, because it's so much different than what I see. And I think that's what I appreciate is like, I grew up playing Parkland Midwest golf, and I really like when I go places and like say in North Carolina, and it's like the scruffy sand hills with the, you know, where you're 1 foot off the fairway and you're in this like sandy waste area. That would look stupid in Illinois, you know? It wouldn't make sense in Chicago to have that, but in the sandhills of North Carolina, that it gives the whole place a bigger meaning. It gives it a sense of place.
Got it. Okay. So
waterfalls are, I mean, they're fine. They're, you know, if you like waterfalls, go for it. You know, there's a ton of golf courses with them. I love the like little fountains and lakes that always gets me. It makes me laugh, but it's like the center photo of a golf course. It's like you go to the website and it's just a fountain and you're like,
That's not why I'm here.
Yeah, well, I mean, to each their own. There's some golfers that love it. So
So
I'm
now
not
we
I'm
know.
not here to cast stones. Like I said, I was like the kid in college reading Golf Club Atlas. So like, I can't cast stones at anybody.
Fair enough. Okay, this one's kind of like it's kind of a bigger question, so feel free to answer it as you'd like. But like, how do you transition new golfers from Top Golf to real golf? It's like such
I
a
don't
big question.
this is I think this is like the overall problem with golf
Right. And
is
maybe
that
you don't have to.
everybody looks at this question and says, "Hey, we need to come up with a strategy." And it's almost like everybody's self-conscious about golf. Like they don't think it can stand alone as like, cool or something. Like the quarantine when nothing else was available and all of a sudden like the pandemic caused like, golf all of a sudden became cool. Like my buddy, all my college buddies are non-golfers. They're all beginners, and I love it because it gives me like a lens into like a
Yeah.
completely different world than me. They used to always make fun of me for playing golf in college, and now it's like they're all getting into the game. A lot of them got into the game during COVID, and it's just like now that they're into it, they're really into it, and I don't think there's like a formulaic thing. It's not like, hey, Top Golf is stage one. Next, you have to advance to this stage. Like, I think you should just like people that go to Top Golf, hit the ball, they're generally going to be more interested in it. I think like one of the biggest problems transitioning like Top Golf, you go there and your clubs are free, right? You got clubs you can use. To me, the biggest problem in golf is, and I don't want you to get in any trouble with anybody, but is the equipment companies and like the lack of like make a really cool like 8 club set that people can just buy for $400. Like the barrier to entry, that's like what all my buddies always ask me is like, hey, should I buy this or this? Like, is there any way I can get around a $500 driver? It's like that's like the craziness of golf is like, oh, I want to get into golf. Well, you want to go buy some new clubs, that's going to cost you $2,000.
Right.
And it's like that is stupid. Like there needs to be an eight club, and you don't need 14 clubs when you start. You don't need that at all. Like I barely ever play with 14 clubs. It's more fun to play with less. Like if you 8 clubs for like $200 to $400, I think the game that would naturally transition because then people will be like, oh, I bought this sweet, and they wouldn't feel inferior because they had the clubs if you just marketed them the right way.
Right. Well, so there's a company I worked a lot with last year called Robin Golf. They're based in LA and they do sets of like 7 to 8. And at the beginning of COVID, I was like, hey, like I'm going to do like a newsletter and I'm going to include the women's set. They're like, we sold out
Yeah.
because it was kind of affordable. I mean, it was more than 500. I think it was like 7, but it comes with 8 clubs, comes with a golf bag, comes with everything you would ever need. And you could just, you buy the set and you go and play.
Yeah,
And
think about like the stuff that golf competes with, like other activities like hiking,
oh gosh.
um,
Yeah,
running,
basketball, like yeah,
like and what 30-year-olds
even
like
tennis.
yeah, tennis, like a racket, say you buy a really nice racket, it's $200. Like running, you buy a nice pair of running shoes, $150.
Right.
Like
And then
is
that's
it
it.
yeah, the only thing that compares really with golf is skiing in
Right.
terms of like cost. But then even I guess you could rent clubs, but it's not the same as renting ski equipment.
Right.
Like to me, like renting ski
Is
equipment
part
is
of going skiing.
yeah, yeah. It's like renting clubs, spending like a lot of clubs, a lot of courses will charge like $50 for a crappy rental set. It's like this is
Right.
such bullshit. Because I would go places without clubs more if it wasn't for the rental fees.
Right. Oh yeah, I know. I do take them with me, and it's tough. It's tough because once you do get into golf, you're like, well, I want the set, and I like want to be able to like have my own clubs and do the whole thing. But like, if you're truly just getting into it, I think like that. What you said is like it's been so tough, especially with these women who like are coming because they like wanted to see what golf is all about. And then I'm like, okay, well, I introduced you to the game and I gave you clubs to work with, but like now you're kind of shit out of luck. And that's tough. And I do hope that like continues to evolve because
Well,
it's holding us back a bit.
I went, my wife is like beginner, like extreme.
Right.
She'll hit a ball like once a year.
Right.
She's interested, but has not gotten fully interested yet. And like she took a lesson a year and a half ago and she like loved it. And but then it was like the end of October and golf season was over. So,
Yeah.
you know, but she was like, oh, I need a set of clubs. So like I went, obviously I kind of know what I'm doing. I went to a rummage sale and got her like a good set of clubs for like $50, but that's the thing that like my buddy who just picked up golf can't go do that. They have no clue. They're texting like, is this a good deal? And that's the hard thing is like there's totally means to get affordable equipment. The problem is that you need a basic working knowledge base to get that affordable equipment.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of work to do. I mean,
Maybe that's what we should do. We should buy up eBay clubs and package them as sets. Yeah, the business idea right there. I feel like
somebody's hopefully doing that, but yes.
They'll be too greedy though. That's the problem. It's like they won't have like we have to have it be a nonprofit.
Yes.
You could make it, you could just go to estate sales and clean up.
Yeah. No, I know. But right, you have to have the basic knowledge. Like you can't just step in and go do that yourself.
Yeah.
All right. Well, two last questions. One is, who is your favorite golf course architect, designer?
I mean, this changes every day of the week.
Yeah.
It's but I would say like sentimentally, the first like truly great golf course I played was a Seth Rayner. That's where I kind of was like, whoa, this is different. So that is probably my favorite golf architect. He gets a kind of a bad rap in the diehard golf architecture world. People come at Rayner, but other than him, probably like Alistair McKenzie. It's hard to say like a modern architect's your favorite because it's weird for me in the position I'm in.
Yeah. Like, you probably shouldn't choose one.
Yeah, I can't choose one. So
no, that's fair. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but Alistair McKenzie's cool, and for anybody that's super interested, travel oriented, go play Pasatiempo. It's accessible. It's in Santa Cruz, California. It's a beautiful place. Take your husband, take your partner, take your wife, go to Pasatiempo, and then drive up to wine country. Like
perfect.
What a great little vacation, right?
Right.
And then there's a golf course that's getting built in wine country by Corin Crenshaw. So that's exciting. A couple of years, it's going to be the spot.
That's awesome. And then what advice do you have for women who want to pick up the game?
God, I think like never say sorry.
Yeah.
Don't get frustrated. Like, don't get frustrated and think you suck, because everybody sucks. Like, I don't know. I got decent at golf at one point in my life, and still all I would do is walk around the golf course and tell myself how much I suck.
Right.
It's like, it's the least fulfilling. You're going to lose at golf. This is a quote my buddy said this to me after I qualified for a tournament once. And he said it's the best summation of golf. He's like, you've really got to cherish this. You got to cherish this moment. And I was like, why? He goes, because this is the 1%. 99% of the time, golf just kicks you in the face. And this is the 1% of time that you won. Like, if because it's so true. Like, you're never happy. Nobody's ever happy. No. And that's what makes the game so, like, makes people so crazy about it, is it's unattainable. Like, you're always chasing it. So, but never say sorry, because, like, everybody's trying as hard as they can. And, like, everybody makes mistakes, and it's so hard. It's just, it's not worth saying I'm sorry. Don't be like, self-consciousness is the worst thing in golf. Like, you should just be you, go out and do it your way, and don't say sorry.
I love it. Yeah, when I played in your fried egg event at Aiken Golf Club, I was paired with Will Knight, who works with you. And I think I said sorry to him like 100 times. And I was like, it literally doesn't matter because like we don't matter in this competition. Like we don't matter. And I just like kept saying sorry the whole time. And I was like, this is so dumb. Like,
Yeah. It's just, you should never say sorry in
yeah.
golf, because like I would get it if like, I would get sorry if you were out there and you weren't
And you hit
trying.
somebody.
No, yeah, but like in general, like, it's sorry if like if you weren't trying, like if you were just going out there and being a pain in the ass, I guess, being sorry. But like if you're like, you're up there, you're trying to hit the ball, you're not trying to top the ball or you're not trying to hit it into the
Right.
woods. Like, you're, so why would you say sorry? It's just like a,
I know. No, that was good. Thank you. And thanks for coming on. This was great.
Oh, I appreciate anytime. I hope people listened. They weren't, put off by the boring conversation. I hope I stayed at least where it was understandable.
No, yeah, that's always the goal.